Salutations, my friends, and thank you for tuning in to another edition of Factions of Freedom. I'm your host, Noisera, Freedom Faction, whichever one you prefer, and I have titled this episode, Foresteps into the Fray. That's right. We're walking right into all the chaos. The reason why, and I'll get into this, the reason why I wanted to call it Four Steps into the Fray is because of all the crazy things we see happening in the news. You know, all these Hollywood implosions, the Texas shooting, you know, obviously the Las Vegas shooting, Antifa fails, November 4th revolution, and combat and climate change, and all this other crazy stuff that we see taking place. It's crazy. It is definitely crazy what we see happening. Before I get into this, you know, the reason why you guys didn't get an episode last week is because I was dealing with censorship. You know, I was literally dealing with censorship all week. You know, on Mondays, whenever we heard about our 2 pages, the Underground Resistance Network, and exposing satanic world government, basically being under attack. I got hacked by some people in Serbia, over there in Kosovo. I thought it was Russia. Thank you guys for clarifying that. And, you know, there's just so much that happened. And then, you know, a few days later, that's whenever my page, Factions of Freedom, got taken down. They didn't really give me an answer as to why. They didn't say anything. They just took it. It was just taken off of Facebook, and they didn't really give me an explanation. And so there's just a whole, and I got it back, you know, for people that are wondering, I got it back. And so we're going to be switching up a whole lot of things as well. I'm definitely going to try and get that newsletter up and running in response to what was happening, because that was my answer to it. You know what? They can't really stop me from directly sending the information to you, so I'll definitely try to get that up. But you know, make sure you're checking out the website, factionsoffreedom.jimdo.com. Once you're there, you can check out the articles, the mini-casts, everything else that we're doing. You know, like I said, the newsletter that we're going to try to get up for you guys as well. And if you like what we're doing and you want to see us grow, as you see us doing, think about becoming a Patreon subscriber. You know, it really does help. A few dollars here, a few dollars there, you know, possibly even monthly donations. It really does help us get to where we're going and really trying to expand. But with that being said, let's jump right into the episode. As I said, 4 steps into the fray, because what is going on all around us? What is happening, you know, from this Uranium One deal to all of these indictments, to everything else that we see happening, you know, Puerto Rico, California, and Florida, and all these other places basically being tossed out of the news cycle because of everything else that's happening. You know, and this is where we're at in 2017. This is the chaos that we see basically unfolding every day. You know, I took the week off and then I came back, and what happened? There was a Texas church, there was a shooting in Texas. 25 people were killed. And then, you know, you start looking into that. This guy looks like he's all kinds of MK Ultra and all kinds of other crazy stuff too. You know, the Air Force didn't keep his clearance. You know, there's a lot of different things. They didn't report him whenever he first got out. We're basically dealing with the wake of the 300-year celebration of Freemasonry. This is the world that they've created. This is what these Freemasons want. Not to give them too much power and too much credit, but this is what we see unfolding all around us. You know, I'll get into this later on about how Albert Pike wrote a letter about 146 years ago about this type of stuff, what we see unfolding around us, because this is it. These people, they're trying to push us into a world war. They're trying to push us into this destabilization. They're trying to push us in all these other directions, and this is very real. You see, I know a lot of people don't want to think of it this way, and you don't want to talk about it. But this is where we see ourselves going. These people, as Trump says, this is the calm before the storm. These people are trying to push us into their new world order. As I said before, these are the 4 steps into the fray. One of the things that's kind of been irking me, really irking me, you know, is these pedogate things, this Pizzagate revelations, you know, and what I would consider TV reality. How these people are manipulating everything we see around us to create this false sense of reality. But again, this is the 300-year celebration of Freemasonry. As we talked about all last year, Anno Lucis, the year of light. That's what these people are proud of. They're proud of what they've crowned, proud of what they've made. And whether or not people want to admit it, you can see it all around you. The symbolism, the signs, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. So I'm going to get into this article, this one about Albert Pike. Since we're here talking about this, about Freemasons, let's kind of lay a foundation for what we're going to be discussing here on this episode. And I put this up November 7th, 2017. It says the elites are following Albert Pike's plan for World War III. American Freemason Albert Pike wrote a letter 146 years ago detailing how the elites plan to launch World War III in the 21st century. The letter, written in 1871, details how the New World Order will provoke a holy war between the Zionists and the Islamic world. Quote, the Third World War must be fomented by taking advantage of the differences caused by the agentur of the Illuminati between the political Zionists and the leader of the Islamic world. The war must be conducted in such a way that Islam, the Muslim Arabic world, and political Zionism, the State of Israel, mutually destroy each other. Meanwhile, the other nations, once divided on this issue, will be constrained to fight to the point of complete physical, moral, spiritual, and economical exhaustion. ThreeWorldWars.com reports Albert Pike received a vision when he described in a letter that he wrote to Mazzini dated August 15, 1871. This letter graphically outlines the plan for 3 world wars that we've seen as necessary to bring about the one world order. And we can marvel at how accurately it has predicted events that have already taken place. And this is why we look at things like this. This is why we look at the Illuminati card game, why we look at all the other signs, symbols, and little tricks that they put out there. Trump is a part of their plan as well. A lot of these things that you see happening are part of a deep, deep plan. And it takes every different day, every different kind of way to try to get it down, to try to figure it out. This is the great mystery. This is why it's called Mystery Babylon. Let's get into this article. It continues on to say that Pike's letter to Mazzini, it is commonly believed fallacy that for a short time the Pike letter to Mazzini was on display in the British Museum Library in London, and it was copied by William Guy Carr, former intelligence officer in the Royal Canadian Navy. The British Library has confirmed in writing to me that such a document has never been in their possession. Furthermore, in Carr's book, Carr includes the following footnote. The keeper of manuscripts recently informed the author that this letter is not catalogued in the British Museum Library. It seems strange that a man of Cardinal Rodriguez's knowledge should have said that it was in 1925. So then it goes on to explain how the First World War is going to, we've already been through that, the Second World War, we already see that. We see these people setting up the stage for this kind of destabilization. But the Third World War, as we talked about, this is one that has to be set up by the agents of the Illuminati, to where they have them fight at physical, spiritual, economic, and moral exhaustion. They say, we shall unleash the nihilists and the atheists, and we shall provoke a formidable social cataclysm, which in all its horror will show clearly to the nations that the effect of absolute atheism, origin of savagery, and the most bloody turmoil. Then, everywhere, the citizens, that's right, everywhere, the citizens obliged to defend themselves against the world minority of revolutionaries will exterminate those destroyers of civilization and the multitude disillusioned with Christianity, whose deistic spirit will from that moment be without compass or direction, anxious for an ideal, but without knowing where to render its adoration, will receive the true light through the universal manifestation of the pure doctrine of Lucifer, brought finally out in public view. This manifestation will result from the general reactionary movement, which will follow the destruction of Christianity and atheism, both conquered and exterminated at the same time. And that's what we see happening right now. Like I said before, this is the 300-year celebration of Freemasonry. This is afterwards. All this stuff that's coming out from Hollywood, all these people that do these types of things, the child sex trafficking, the human trafficking, the satanic ritual abuse. This is where these people come from. This is all part of a plan. This whole culture of depravity that we see is being pushed onto us, not only by the mainstream media, but by entertainment. If anything, whenever all this fiasco started talking, you guys heard me talk about how we should start creating our own conscious media, our own platform, our own way to get around these people from trying to figure out ways to indoctrinate us. I mean, yes, we have Corey Feldman over here exposing Hollywood, but everyone knows about the casting couch. Everyone knows about the wickedness that these people purvey. And this is still, again, all part of their plan, all part of their guided agenda towards destruction, to wipe us all out so that they can rule, so that they can reign. That is their intention. They don't want us to have individuality. They don't want us to have faith. Like they said, they will push us to a point to where we're at spiritual, moral, economic, and all kinds of other exhaustion points where we can't be any good. Isn't that what we see happening right now? They're trying right now to do away with all kinds of religions. They're trying to have us destroy ourselves, destroy each other, at each other's throats. As we talked about in the episode with David of End Time Signs, with all the guns, they're trying to have us exterminate ourselves. This is the reality that we see these people trying to create. You see, and I'll put this link in the description bar below so you guys can read it all, because it's very, very thorough and very good. And I know it doesn't sound like it, but whenever we look at what's really going on, for me, I've seen what they've been setting up outside of everything else. I see these people trying to use this Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, Agenda 2050 cover, so to speak, to get this stuff out here, to be the New World Order. This is what they're trying to put out there. But the reason why I pivot from the World War III letter written by Albert Pike to the New World Order and Agenda 2030 is because they're one and the same. It's the same hand in the background working on these types of things. How many times do we hear about how these people are? I mean, right now, Trump's in Japan or China. Right now. This is the world government. This is the one world order. This is global governance. No matter how many different times you see the same kind of political theater, you know, red versus blue, Republican versus Democrat, liberal, whatever, liberal versus conservative, all these different types of things. It's all political theater. It's all underneath the guise of control. It's the illusion of choice. Right here, Agenda 21, Vatican calls meeting to discuss global depopulation agenda for New World Order. Strangely enough, we had Prince William talk about how he called for a depopulation campaign in Africa, stating that the infrastructure and the development is good, but that the rapid population growth needs to be culled. The efforts that Bill Gates and all those other people have done there, the wickedness that they've taken place, that has taken place underneath their guys, underneath their eyes, it's not enough. Prince William is literally coming out to talk about it. And now we have Pope Francis, of course, Franken Pope, and other people from the Pontifical Academy of Science having their meeting, you see. And this is something that we've touched on throughout the entirety of the show, you know. And I'll get into this stuff later. You know, I don't want to jump into it right now. Things like climate change and all this other stuff. I wanted to highlight the fact that what we see happening with this TV reality that's being built around us, with this pedogate, Pizzagate, Hollywood implosion that we see taking place. This is part of their plan. The damage that Hollywood has already done is still there and will still be there. That's no doubt. Now, one of the things they don't even talk about is the occult aspect behind it. These people are literally practicing witchcraft, they're practicing Satanism, they're practicing dark stuff. I mean, you got Kevin Spacey over here. You got Kevin Spacey, Harvey Weinstein, Anthony Weiner, all these people, and now even Charlie Sheen in the mix. All of these people who are affected by this type of stuff. But wasn't it Charlie Sheen who was talking about him being a warlock and having tiger's blood? Well, I'm sure you would think that as well if you were having sex with children and getting away with it, if you had that much power. I mean, look at what Kevin Spacey does in House of Cards. This is what these people are. They feel as though they lord over us, as if they are our masters. And now, what I would consider this TV reality is these people, they realize that Hollywood is destroying itself, it's imploding. So what they've decided to do is they've decided to step out of their role. They've decided to use their character or whatever persona they've created or mastered over the time of just being an actor. They've decided to let that come out into the world and actually let that be the voice. But then you got to ask, who's paying these people? How many different movies was Harvey Weinstein involved in? This is all very, very important. Because yes, it might seem like it's one big show, like this place is imploding. But Corey Feldman doesn't need that much money to actually produce a movie. I mean, look, he already named, what was it? He named Charlie Sheen. And he's going to name other people. All without the help of having this money. And this is where we have to look at, because these people, it is one big show. That's what we're talking about. These are the real pawns. And one thing they really try to keep underneath the wraps of it all that I really try to reiterate is the fact that these people are practicing this dark occult magic. This isn't just homosexual activities. This isn't just the gay mafia out there in Hollywood. No, this is that satanic army. These are those Luciferians. These are those occultists. They enjoy being depraved. And that's why they're trying to push it out here into the real world. As I said before, when we were reading this letter from Albert Pike, a lot of people these days, they think God isn't real. They think, you know, God is invented. I understand everybody has that. The idea, ultimately, is to make us non-spiritual, to make us void of soul, void of dignity, void of righteousness, peaceful, to enjoy everything that is wicked, to succumb to the darkness. That is what these people crave. That is what they want. That is why they try to push it onto us. You see. And I'll get into stuff like this later on. You know, the Texas church shooting, Las Vegas shooting, Anti-Fails, November 4th revolution, and things like this, because it's all very important. This is their plan for the New World Order. But this is the spiritual foundation they're trying to set for us. This is why it's so important to have morals, to have a guideline, to learn a little bit of restraint, to have a little bit of discipline, to not indulge. That's a lot of what Anton LaVey's form of Satanism is indulge yourself in the world. Well, if you indulge in everything, you can have McDonald's every day, right? You can go out and eat every single day, right? There's no such thing as discipline. You don't need manna from heaven. You don't need to fast. You see? This is the TV reality where everyone's a celebrity, where everyone can be someone. And I agree, we are all someone. But what is it that they're trying to have us be? You see, this is why whenever we start talking about creating a conscious culture, not only do we expect other people to act like us or act like what we would consider conscious. This is why I have such a tentative relationship with the concept of staying woke. You see, everybody has different levels of that. I think somebody needs to make a TV show about, you know, the awakening process and what it's like, and in different stages. You know, what it's like to have friends that are woke. You know, what it's like for one person to learn something. You know, there's so many different ways with that. But Hollywood is imploding. This is why it's imperative that people in the alternative media, people that are listening right now, actually do something with the time that we have. Yes, it's okay to look at these people and say, yep, you know, I knew it. I knew you were pedophiles. I knew you were sacrificing children. I knew you were ritualizing children. I knew you were doing MK Ultra, you know, sex kitten, mind control stuff like that. I know you were doing that. But outside of that, this is where we come from. We come from their faults. This is why we have to build something off of their ashes. And unless we do, we're going to have more of this chaos. You see. And don't worry, we'll get into things like the Las Vegas shooting and all of this other stuff, because it plays a part in it. But we've just got to understand what these people's intentions are. Like I said, this is a plan. A very, very skillfully organized agenda. And yeah, they're throwing out people that could... people that have gotten caught up, people that, you know, that they can sacrifice, basically. But even then, these people aren't even really going to, they're not going to jail, they're not getting killed, there's nothing like really bad happening to them. It's all hearsay right now. All hearsay. So, you know, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about that Texas church shooting. I didn't really catch it as soon as it happened, but we'll talk about the aftermath of it and what this stuff really looks like. You see, and why more things like this are going to happen, you know. Things like the Las Vegas shooting, what I consider anti-fail, and how they were supposed to do this revolution. You see, so many different questions. But with that being said, let's take a break, and we'll come back talking about this. This is Freedom Faction. This is Foresteps into the fray of Factions of Freedom. Stay tuned. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for hanging out, and thank you guys for being here. It is always a pleasure whenever I am gifted your time. Really, it is. You know, like I said, last week I was dealing with all kinds of censorship, basically the entire week, and I was just so drained. You know, and it was just crazy. It was really just crazy. But you know, it's good to step back and see other people cover stuff. I'll tell you that. You know, it's good to see that. It's good to see people come together over this type of stuff. It is a tragedy, though, to see these types of things unfold. I mean, we haven't even figured out what's going on with the Mandalay Bay shooting and the Las Vegas shooting before we had another shooting in Texas. You know, that's crazy. If you ask me, that is crazy. Texas church shooting leaves 26 dead. Suspect was dishonorably discharged from the Air Force, and there's a lot more information coming out that this dude might be MK Ultra. You know, that he was a hardcore atheist. He was seen running from a facility, from a mental health facility. You know, all kinds of weird stuff surrounding this guy. You know, who goes in there and kills a church, and they're saying, oh, it's because he was having a disgruntled relationship with his girlfriend's mother. You know, that's too much. Too much. Way too much. As soon as we're having the Las Vegas shooting, you know, and there's more information that's come out with that as well. I've been keeping up with that on the back end of things. You know, how there were helicopters there, right above in the other area. You know, there are other peoples. It's been confirmed that there are multiple teams, multiple shooters. You know, it's also been confirmed that there's actual that it could be considered a gun deal going bad, an arms trade, an arms deal going bad. You know, I mean, look at what's going on in Saudi Arabia right now. You have princes over there dying on helicopters, all kinds of stuff happening. So there's a lot of regime change. A lot of crazy stuff is going on over here. That's what I'm saying. There's bullets flying. There's all kinds of things happening. And what we see basically taking place, you know, is a cleaning of the crop. Out with the old, in with the new type of thing. Let's get into this article right here, you know, where let's talk about this, you know, this shooting. Again, another one. Instantly nullifying, and this is put up. There's like 3 different articles here, but this is put up by IntelliHub from Mike Adams of Natural News. It says, instantly nullifying the gun control argument that's always pushed by mainstream media following every mass shooting tragedy. The Texas church shooting was stopped by a man armed with a citizen armed with a rifle. The armed citizen engaged the shooter with the rifle fire, according to the media reports, causing him to drop his rifle and flee the scene. Another thing that I kind of hear that is kind of strange, apparently he shot himself, so how could he have fled the scene? Right here, the shooter was later found dead in his vehicle, most likely after bleeding out from the gunshot wound inflicted by the armed Texas citizen. This has also been confirmed by the Texas Rangers via Grabian. It says Freeman Martin, a major in the Texas Rangers and a spokesman for the Texas Department of Public Safety, says the suspect dropped his rifle and fled after being confronted by a local man who grabbed his rifle. Freeman provided a timeline of the tragedy in a press briefing Sunday evening. So I'm not going to go over this, but what I will say is that it's good that this is good. You know, I know I'll probably catch flack where people saying, oh, you know, we need less guns. You know, more guns gets people in trouble. You know, why, look at how did this guy get a gun? Well, he was dishonorably discharged from the military, so I don't know that. You know, they didn't process that, so that was another reason why he was able to own a gun. You know, he ran away, and then there's a lot of stuff going on with this guy. You know, a lot of curiosity surrounding him. What else we see taking place afterwards? The story that they're trying to cover up. You know, as always, these guys come up with the quick. We need to talk about gun control. We need to talk about gun control. You know, and my thoughts go out to the people and the prayers of these families. You know, because this is a very real thing. You know. But this is how it works. They whip up people, and then they just send them out there. They let these crazies loose. You know, you look at the guy, he looks like a creep. He straight looks like a creep, man. You know, and this is what's going on. We don't ever really talk about, you know, how and that's where you get into murky waters, where you can see that they're trying to get everybody to have guns and kill each other and do all this other stuff, but at the same time take out citizens and have different teams working, all kinds of weird stuff happening. You know, like last week we were supposed to have that grid down situation from the DOD and the DOE. I was going through my own censorship. I couldn't tell, and now we actually have another place out here. I think it's in Wisconsin or Michigan that they're conducting their own military drill as well. All these things are happening. But one of the reasons why I wanted to put that in there, you know, so we can talk about these shootings, so we could talk about the Mandalay Bay shooting and all these other things that we see unfolding, are these people are trying to basically create the air to say it's okay. You can go out there, you can go kill people, you can go attack people, you can go basically carry out your political agenda, and you won't really get that much flack, and you might actually be supported for it. You see, what I'm trying to say is they're trying to radicalize everyone. They're saying, now's the time. You're activated. Go out there. Go shoot people. Go try to cause chaos. Go mess with people. Go do as much as you can. We're living in lawless times, and this epic amount of what we would consider lawlessness and craziness is going to continue to intensify, so that they can basically not only clamp down on our rights, but monitor everything we're doing. All this chaos will produce a police state. You see. But what they're trying to do with all these shootings is basically get it to where, and this might seem like a far-fetched idea, you know, like I said, we're having all these different grid down operations take place, you know, all these different drills, these shootings, these false flags, all these things happening. What happens if somebody actually drops a bomb or takes out a major part of the city, or major part of any kind of city? You see what I'm saying? I mean, we have Kim Jong-un threatening EMPs every other week. We're preparing for a grid down situation, for EMP attacks. You know, there's all kinds of strange things going on with this. And I know people don't want to look at it like that, but what are these attacks going to do? Right now, we think it's just something simple. You know, we think it's just Antifa, these liberals, these hipsters, these trendy people. We think it's all these people, these radicalized, these people that are in a marginal group, people that are on the fray of society. We think it's all them just hanging out, you know, just shooting the breeze. We're not taking it very serious, but that's okay. They're biding their time. There was a piece that we put up on our website, and I'll see if I can try to find that for you guys. But it was basically like a book or a manual about guerrilla warfare. And I know this is silly. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about Anti-Fail's November 4th revolution, how it failed and things of this nature. But I'm saying, who's actually backing these people? Why are all these shootings, these drills, why are these things allowed to take place? Why aren't, you know, they really being responded to? And if anything, why are we later hearing on that they were basically green-lighted, gas-lighted even, allowed to happen? You see right here, the mini manual for the urban guerrilla by Carlos Marighella. And in this, it actually talks about all kinds of stuff. I'll try to find it. It talks about kidnappings, you know, executions, propaganda, all kinds of crazy stuff right there. Assaults, raids and penetrations, occupations, ambushes, street tactics, strikes and work stoppages, desertions, diversions, seizures, expropriation of weapons, ammunition, and explosives, liberation of prisoners, executions, kidnapping, sabotage, terrorism, armed propaganda, and war of nerves. You see, and this is just one page of it. You guys can you guys can find this on the website. I'll put this in there so you can look at it. But these types of things are going on. I know it seems silly, and we probably don't think of it as something that's serious. But what are these people's motives? Why do they always try to cover up what the actual intent of these shootings are? Why do they always try to spin the stories? Because if they were to actually talk about it, it would be kind of crazy. They're trying to get us to have a civil war in this country. We're already in a soft one. And whenever we have people that hate the country, hate where things are going, you know, hate in general, have no real motive, no real purpose, no real goal, you know, like we talked about in the first part of the show with Albert Pike's letter, you know, just basically unleashing the nihilists, unleashing, you know, the atheists, unleashing all these people who don't really care. Isn't that what we're seeing? Isn't that what we're seeing? They're expecting this, and they're being radicalized right now, and they're grouping together. They're not thinking for themselves. No one's really thinking for themselves. It's creating this weird kind of hive mind where we're all just grouped together. This is why even in the conscious community you hear me talking about it so much, where we actually need to stick together. Don't do the work of the enemy. They're already trying to divide us. But these people who have already chosen division, who have already sunken to the level of believing in the two-party system, and all kinds of other depravity, like we really try to say. I mean, these people, it really does become like a war against good and evil. It is a spiritual war manifesting itself. And to a lot of people who are ill-educated on some of this stuff and uneducated as well, they can't really see the difference. They're just playing into it. But they don't understand how they playing into it compromises all of us. You see. So whenever they're practicing assaults, I know we don't think it. It probably doesn't get politicized. You got to think we have people, like I said, in the country. We have been infiltrated. People in the country who do not care for us, who want to see us destroyed, who want to see America taken down, who see nice, wholesome families, and are just like, you know what? I didn't have that growing up, so why should somebody else? You know what? I don't need to. I don't want to see this. You know, look at these people being successful. Look at these people being happy. You know, everybody knows a lot of haters. Trust me, and they're very real. You see what I'm saying? But now, you know, they're no longer hiding behind keyboards. They're out there, you know, getting funding. Out there causing all kinds of chaos. Like I said, actually being enabled by the military, by these intelligence agencies. I mean, a lot of, what was it? Omar Fatin or Omar Satin? Or Omar Mateen, I think one of the shooters, you know, he was actually encouraged. They gave him everything he needed. They gave him the ammunition. They gave him the weapons. They gave him the training. They gave him the gear that he needed to carry out these types of things. If you don't think that they're trying to radicalize Americans to destroy America, so we're all screwed, I don't know what to tell you. So this is not far-fetched to talk about, you see. This is what they're trying to do. This is the 4 steps into the fray, more of the destabilization that these people are trying to create. This is that deep state destabilization. You see, let's see if we can, like, because I put up an article about it, you know, how Antifa, I put it up on our website, how Antifa had promised for their rally. You know, we never heard of it. I thought it was kind of weird how the Million Mask March was in the same time frame, but we never heard about Antifa's actual, I don't want to say pity party, but actual their rally, the thing that they were doing. You see, they kept going on and on and on about how, you know, November 4th it ends, November 4th it begins. You know, this is where we're going. The Trump-Pence regime must go. Like, I hear you. I'm not down for Trump either. But this is why I'm protesting him in my own way. I'm not out there to try to destroy stuff so everybody gets screwed, so we all have our rights subtly taken. I mean, who could this, I don't know if there's been information that's come out about it, but I'm pretty sure this shooter from Texas, you know, this guy that killed 25 people, I'm sure he probably was involved with Antifa some way. You know, all I'm saying is this, and I hate to sound like some of these mainstream media news outlets, but what we see happening is a lot of muddying of the lines. A lot of confusion is being put out there. A lot of misinformation, a lot of disinformation is being put out there, and the ultimate goal of it is to confuse and distract everyone so they can continue to carry out more of these attacks. Yes, we might not have seen the violent rally that they wanted, but give it time. What if they're still recruiting? I mean, they've been doing this throughout the entirety of the year. This is only the first year, basically. We haven't even finished the year yet, and this is still happening. You see, there's lunacy in the streets. Let's get into this article. Let's talk about this revolution and what I feel like they're trying to do. Like I said, they're really trying to radicalize people and say that, oh, you know what? Looks like somebody went and took out one of our power grid points or one of our power stations. You know, everybody's got to give up a certain right at this point. You know, now we're going to be like Venezuela. We're going to have to ration out the power in certain places. This ties into climate change, global warming, Agenda 2030, and all things of this nature as well. But my point is this: they're trying to, at the moment, foment a civil war, get us at each other's throats, have us be so polarized that we just snap and do all kinds of dumb stuff that you see taking place. Let me get into this article. It says that this nightmare must end. The Trump-Pence regime must go. So declare the opening lines of a full-page advertisement in the New York Times promoting mayhem and insurrection for this Saturday. That was this past Saturday, November 4th. I put this up November 3rd, a day before. Didn't hear anything. It goes on to say that the most violent hate group in America at the moment, Antifa, has placed ads in the New York Times and other papers across the country directing readers to a website advocating violent rebellion in the streets to overthrow a legally elected sitting president. Riots are planned in 20 major cities for that Saturday, November 4th. Just how big the protest will be is yet to be seen, but this is real and actually happening. Sure. Readers of Now the End Begins know that all these riots are funded by George Soros and his many millions, as we talked about before, with him donating his $18 billion to his Open Society Fund. You see, so they plan rallies, they plan riots. We talk about them actually having the capabilities and learning and training with people trying to carry out sabotage, armed propaganda, terroristic attacks, kidnappings, sabotage, a number of different things. I mean, we're picking at the low-hanging fruit whenever we see these people screaming in the sky, acting like babies. We're choosing to not take them as a serious threat, the same way we're not taking North Korea as a serious threat. These people are only getting angrier and more, I don't want to say organized, but radicalized. Really, they're getting more angry about these types of things. They're recruiting other people. And that's the crazy thing, is it's not even just Antifa. It's just people around them. They're acting as a catalyst for all this destabilization. They're acting as a platform for this destabilization that's taking place. So I don't, it's like I said, it's not about them. It's not about what they're trying to do. It's about what they're going to stand for and what's going to come after them. You see. So when we're talking about kidnappings, executions, we haven't seen it yet. Whenever they talk about the November 4th it beginning, they're just saying they're getting started. You don't want to, and just like terrorists and ISIS, we're giving them way too much of our attention. They feel emboldened by all the attention we're getting. Like people that have gotten arrested for a crime, we are just giving them all of the spotlight, and they are loving it. Absolutely loving it. And they don't even stand for actual real renaissance or revolution. They just stand for disorganized chaos. You see. But they're planning on this. They're planning on the destabilization. They're planning on the societal collapse and the civil unrest. I put this article up, again, November 3rd, because I really wanted to talk about this type of stuff. Anti-fails November 4th revolution and what this stuff really means. We've touched on this throughout the entirety of the show. Things like Jade Helm 15, UX 17, Operation Gotham Shield, and now Thunderstorm Spiral. Things of this nature. These are all important. You see. I don't think the Pentagon expected to see, George Soros over here donating money to all these different things, but I think they expected, with the economic collapse and the financial collapse that we see taking place, the rise of digital currency, of cryptocurrency, of Bitcoin, and things of this nature, I think they saw that coming, and they were trying to prepare for it. But they're also preparing to take on civilization, to take on people, to take on civilians, you see. And more of these attacks that take place, more of these little shootings, these Las Vegas shootings, the Texas shootings, and even some of these natural disasters as well, this will prompt a military industrial complex response. This will prompt a FEMA response. This will prompt a law enforcement police state style response to these things that are happening. So yes, they are going to continue to let these things happen, because war is good for these people. That's what they want. Let me get into this article. And I said this article is revisited from an article earlier this year from an activist post. It says, as populations move into these cities across the globe, an increasing majority of people will live in urban areas, places which quickly become very desperate and very vulnerable during a major crisis, as we've talked about with Hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and Maria. Every prepper knows the dangers of being stuck in a major metropolitan city in the event of a major hurricane, like I said, a grid-down scenario, or civil unrest and societal collapse, all of which we've seen throughout this entire year. Okay, in such a situation, Every prepper knows food, water, and other vital resources will quickly become scarce or unavailable. This is why we see Puerto Rico still suffering and we having to get materials to them. We need to start being more vigilant when it comes to preparing. While things are still relatively good before things do hit the fan, we do need to be aware of what is happening. This isn't a scare tactic. If you're smart, you'll pay attention. If you're smart, you'll prepare. Okay, a gridlock of survivors will try to get out or get their hands on assets. Increasingly, the Pentagon is looking at the likelihood, perhaps the inevitability, of conflict/war inside of a destabilized or decimated urban center like New York. According to the Daily Mail, the Pentagon is calling for help from technological innovators to take on the future of warfare. In the program titled Thunderstorm Spiral, the U.S. government solicits demonstrations to tackle the challenges of megacities and urban environments, which will become increasingly prevalent as populations continue to grow. A megacity is defined as a city with more than 10 million residents. To put this in perspective, there are currently over 8 million people living in New York. As these numbers continue to grow within defined areas, infrastructure will have to adapt, pushing megacities toward the development of subterranean or underground environments. So before I continue on with this, I actually did a mini cast where we talked about smart cities and robot citizens. I'll definitely urge you guys to go check that out. What we're looking at is things going down. They're preparing now because they can see it already happening. The writing is on the wall. I mean, look at with Florida, okay, with all the Puerto Ricans that are going there from these hurricanes. The population is going to expand. I mean, what is that going to do to the economy? What is that going to do to the society? What is that going to do to the environment? What is that going to do with the health even? Are these people compatible? Yes, they're compatible, and it'll happen. But what I'm trying to say is things are going to intensify further down the road because we don't really have a lot of solutions that are in play right now other than control. Let me continue on here. It says, in 2014, there were 23 megacities with vast subterranean structures. In 2025, it's expected that this number will reach 37. So what they're basically saying is by 2021, Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, they can see these subterranean civilizations, basically people living underground, trying to actually live. But they need to combat that. And I'll get into why it's important with the grid down situation and everything else that we see happening, because I need to get into this article about I think it's Wisconsin, talking about Wisconsin, the National Guard planning another power grid collapse, as well as the DoD's plan for November 4th to carry out this blackout drill. But let me continue on here with this article. It says, to meet these needs, the Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Emerging Capability and Prototyping, Rapid Reaction Technology Officer, RRTO Technology Demonstration Program, is sponsoring the request for information issued by the Pentagon. As the world's population grows, the probability of the U.S. needing to conduct combat and humanitarian assistance disaster relief operations with a megacity defined as a city with more than 10 million residents also grows. The solicitation states, the desired capabilities in focus of the program includes GPS techniques for the underground and dense urban environments, along with the intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance sensors for use in tunnels. Basically, we need drones for underground. We need to be able to sense and detect everything underground. As major American, Asian, and European cities grow with extreme rapidity, urban planners have been expanding large underground facilities. Increasingly, it is not just subway systems, but shopping malls, parking lots, utilities, and perhaps even residential units that are being built underground. Hence where Elon Musk comes in with his Boring Company and the deep underground military bases, these bunkers. They're trying to create these types of things. This is why you see them also creating vertical towers, being more in harmony with the earth. This is a long-term agenda, as we talked about before. While this may be practical to facilitate crowded above-ground conditions, it brings new dangers for populations who could be trapped underneath in the event of a bombing, a terrorist attack, or major natural disaster. Inadequate design to accommodate flooding and allow evacuation for people underground is perhaps the biggest threat facing these quickly expanding facilities. The United Nations University has studied many of the disaster scenarios that could occur in underground spaces, noting the rapid growth of underground facilities in mega-urban areas across the world. So basically what they're trying to do is take care of everybody that is underground, take care of everybody that is above ground, and take care of people that are living in strange situations, strange kinds of things like this. They're preparing for a grid down situation. I mean, what have, like I said, what have we seen with hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and Maria? I'm not saying there's people living underground there yet, that we can't tell. But I mean, look at the homeless population in California. You see, how many people are there? What could go on over there? I mean, the people are still healing from these fires, and those are suspect as well. But let's get into this article from Zero Hedge, where it talks about Wisconsin National Guard and how they plan a power grid collapse drill. Okay, it says, according to the Wisconsin National Guard Public Affairs Office, a 2-day military drill will take place in the Columbia County and at Wisconsin's Emergency Operations Center in Madison, simulating a total power grid collapse on November 15th through the 16th. As the press release states, quote, the public should not be alarmed or concerned if they notice an increased law enforcement presence in the military personnel, as well as vehicles and equipment, including non-military unmanned aerial vehicles in the drill region. The drill is in conjunction with the national level exercise known as GridX, which is an exercise to simulate a cyber/physical attack on the electric and other critical infrastructures across North America. Wisconsin's drill will involve county and state law enforcement and first responders, including the Wisconsin National Guard. So before I go on here talking about this, before I continue on, this is what I keep trying to reiterate. Why are these people planning for a grid down situation? What comes down whenever, what happens whenever the power goes out? Martial law. What happens whenever, and this is why we need to have people that are getting generators, solar technology. I mean, look what happened in Florida. They said that having solar technology in Florida during the crisis was considered illegal. What's going to happen in one of these grid down situations whenever you're able to sustain yourself? But they don't ever talk about this. You see, and they're planning for this. So why is this important? Well, they can use these covers. They can use these Antifa attacks, these terrorist attacks, these false flag shootings. They can use that as a preemptive thing to take place, and then shut the power off. What happened? And there's so much that comes with looking at what happens when the power goes off as well. Then you get like a purge type situation, to where the resources slowly start to dwindle. But what happens if your power is on? What happens if your lights are on while the power is off? People are going to notice, hey, this guy's got stuff. Hey, this person's he's still good. He's got heat. Hey, he must have food. This person, we need to kill this person. People don't think about it, but it's only a few days before you start thinking real crazy. We really need to start preparing about this type of stuff. Let me get back into this article. It says Major General Don Dunbar, Wisconsin's adjutant general, said, quote, GridX is a great opportunity for our emergency management officials, the National Guard, local first responders, and our private industry partners to train together so we are ready to respond if a threat impacted our power grid. While we simply can't train for every possible scenario, building relationships now makes us all better prepared if we had to respond to a real-world situation. My thoughts exactly, Major General. This is why I'm telling people these days, learn about your neighborhood. Learn about what is going on around you. Learn who your people are. Learn who you can trust. You see, let me go on. It says that the article describes how Wisconsin is preparing for a total grid collapse and warns the preparation has already started. In addition, the report gives timing on the next full major scale drill expected in spring 2008, coined, quote, Dark Sky, Project Dark Sky, drill Operation Dark Sky. Over the past several years, Wisconsin has placed an emphasis on the importance of preparing for a long-term power outage and developing capabilities to respond to a cyber incident. And that sounds familiar, right? Sounds crazy, right? Because weren't we just dealing with that last week? The same time whenever we were hearing about this Antifa nonsense, their war, right? We heard about how the DOD was trying to plan a solar storm-based national blackout drill during the Antifa protests. Now, I'm sure there's no coincidence. If anything, I'm sure Antifa did that just to mess with people. But there, right there, as you see, predicting an EMP detonated 298 miles above central USA. Look at the effects that it would have. It would hit everybody. You see. And they're saying it's the sunstorm. They're expecting it, and right here is where the actual bulletin was up. It's from October 24th, 2017. It says elements of the U.S. Department of Defense will conduct a communications interoperability training exercise November 4th through the 6th, once again simulating a, quote, very bad day scenario. Amateur radio and Mars organizations will take part. Quote, this exercise will begin with a national massive coronal objection event which will impact the national power grid as well as all forms of traditional communication, including landline, telephone, cell phone, satellite, and internet connectivity. Army Mars Program Manager Paul English explained in an announcement. So this is what we're talking about. They're planning this. They're organizing and they're planning it, as these people in Wisconsin call it, Grid X, Operation Grid X, and as they're training for in the coming years, or really later this next year, early next year, with Operation Dark Sky. These things are happening, you see. But what happens whenever the power goes off? What happens afterwards? And why would the power go off? Can't be Kim Jong-un, because that's going to start World War III on some other stuff. That's a false flag waiting to happen. What are they expecting? Is it climate change? Is it going to happen here? We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about that. We're going to be talking about climate change, this Paris Climate Summit that's happening, COP21, and how the Vatican is having a meeting, or they had a meeting, to discuss population control. And what all this means. Why are they planning to have the grid go down? What happens with that? They can rebuild society. Is this part of the economic collapse? The financial collapse? So many different things are happening. And we have to talk about it all. Otherwise, we'll get lost in the chaos. But like I said, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to be talking about these things and more. So stay tuned. This is Factions of Freedom. You're listening to the Foresteps into the Fray. Stay tuned. And we are back. Speaking of spiraling thunderstorms and trying to get the power back on, you want to hear something crazy? Trump was the only president not invited to the Paris Climate Summit. See, there's a lot at play right now. A lot of different agendas at play. And I know a lot of people want Donald Trump to be their savior. Ain't nobody gonna save you. No one's gonna save you. You have to save yourself. When the power goes out, are you going to save yourself? That's what you need to look at. Donald Trump's not gonna save you. First responders, they're not gonna save you. They're gonna have to try to save everyone. Just be realistic now. Okay. So with the time that we have left, we're going to be talking about climate change, COP23, the Vatican meeting, the CIA's cursed bread of France, and how they're trying to basically legalize drugs, this opioid epidemic, letting all this stuff go through because they see that indeed society is collapsing, so they're trying to ease things. They're trying to change things. There's no way that we're ever going to be able to get back to the point to where we were. This is why they call it sustainable development. This is why it's called the socioeconomic reformation. We are indeed seeing the first world collapse. That's what a lot of globalization is. It's global communism. It's where everybody's being brought down to a certain standard. There's no more pinnacle. We're all basically sharing everything. We're sharing the earth. We're sharing resources. We're sharing it all. There's no more abundance. Everybody's together. So this is really, really high level stuff that we're going to be starting to talk about. But let me get into this article right here, and then I'll talk about how Congress has admitted that they want to try to modify the weather. But I put this up November 8th. It's from Mint Press News. It says that Trump was the only president not invited to the Paris Climate Summit. It says Europe One is reporting that the French President Emmanuel Macron has announced that for the moment, U.S. head of state Donald J. Trump is not invited to the international conference on the climate to be held in Paris in the wake of COP23 in Berlin on November 17th. The summit in Paris, to be held on December 12th, is being organized by France for 2 years of the Paris Accord on the climate. It will bring together 2,000 participants with 100 countries being invited and over 800 organizations. It will be held on the Isle of Seguin on the outskirts of Paris, as Macron has announced during the G20 this summer, in order to redouble efforts on the commitment after the decision of the United States of America to withdraw from the Paris Accord. In the wake of that decision, Trump was not invited. A low-level U.S. delegation, however, will represent the U.S., just not the president. Macron's office said on Tuesday, quote, "For the moment, President Donald Trump is not invited." Oh, he's not invited. Blah, 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 blah. You know, let's all cry about it. You know, let's all make it a deal. Ha, ha, ha. Let's all cry. Because, yeah, you know, I get it. Let's talk about climate change. These people, they all have to follow an agenda. This is still the first year. They're trying to make it a whole deal, you know, to pressure them into it, to talk about climate change and all these other things happening. You know, this is, again, more of the socioeconomic reformation. Oil, as crazy and complex as oil is, it is ending, or at least it's being put on reserve. It has its own thing going on right now. We're talking more about renewable energy and resources like this. I'll talk about how even in Saudi Arabia they are trying to create this city called Neom, where they're basically carving out land that's 33 times the size of New York, and what they're trying to do with this land is basically make a fully sustainable, fully renewable society, a smart city. It's crazy. It's crazy. Let me get back into this article. It says, since the invited heads of state are those engaged in the implementing the accord, questioned on the practical use of such a supplementary climate summit, given the unlikelihood that anything will be accomplished in a single day, Macron's office said holding it, quote, is necessary and important in order to shore up international mobilization. So basically, come together. You know, even if it's for a day, we need to come together to talk about the climate. Again, more of this global governance. The statement said, quote, this will not, however, be a pledging conference, a conference where official goals would be committed to with numbers. The aim is to put together coalitions at the summit that will yield concrete results, notably creating dynamics among cities, investment funds, and development banks. The idea is to demonstrate that there is action, that it is necessary to accelerate and to find new sources for financing very concrete projects. Paris sees it as complementary to last year's summit and an opportunity to stock this trajectory so far. So as I said before, this is what we see shaping up to happen around us. This is what these people are trying to do, is create a entirely different society. One that's beholden to the earth, one that is in harmony with the planet, as predicted by the Georgia Guidestones. You see, and that's why we had to talk about Albert Pike beforehand, because this is a long-term agenda. There's many different agendas at play here. You see, and I'll use this as an example, and then we'll get into Pope Francis and the Vatican and all the other crazy stuff that they're doing. But right here, Saudi Arabia has announced a plan to build a new megacity across its border with Jordan and Egypt, which would be entirely powered by renewable energy. The city, which has been named Neom, will be built from the ground up on a massive greenfield site in northwest Saudi Arabia. It will span over 26,500 square kilometers and an area more than 33 times bigger than New York City. The city already has its own Twitter account and website. The Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman said the city will focus on industries including energy and water, biotechnology, food, advanced manufacturing, and entertainment. It will be backed by more than $500 billion by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia, PIF, the kingdom's largest sovereign fund, and other local and international investors. Quote, Neom is situated in one of the world's most prominent economic arteries, through which nearly a tenth of the world's trade flows, PIF said in a press release. Its strategic location will also facilitate the zone's rapid emergence of a global hub that connects Asia, Europe, and Africa, enabling 70% of the world's population to reach it in under 8 hours. Precisely. They're trying to change everything. They're trying to change everything. Saudi Arabia, where they're known for their oil, they're trying to get involved in renewable technology. Sounds a little bit crazy, don't you think? Don't you think? So then let's get into this, because this is, again, more of what these people are trying to do. This is a long-term agenda. Getting the power back on, changing it, basically resetting society, letting it collapse so that they can come through and try to create something off of the ashes. Right here, this is put up October 30th. It's Agenda 21. Vatican calls meeting to discuss global population agenda, depopulation agenda for the New World Order. It says Pope Francis has called a meeting of world leaders and religious figureheads to discuss advancing New World Order policies such as population reduction and a one world government. The Pontifical Academy of Science, PAS, announced the conference has been scheduled to be held November 2nd through the 4th at the Vatican. So basically the Vatican had their meeting, and then we shut the power off here, and then we're having this week off basically, and then next week we're having this little shutdown with the Wisconsin power. You see what I'm saying? It's a gradual thing. A little bit here, a little bit there, a little bit here, a little bit there. They're taking the time to slowly get us prepared and ready to shut the power off. And whenever they shut the power off, they'll say, you know what? There's no way we can ever have this much power, this much stuff going into society. Again, I mean, look at what's happening in Puerto Rico. Those people are basically migrating here. Incremental, this plan is to try to basically turn society into one big battery, one big rechargeable battery. Not one standalone battery, one big rechargeable battery. Let me continue this. It says PAS claims that the meeting has been arranged to discuss a range of topics aimed at tackling climate change and our responsibility for the planet by brainstorming ways of reducing the world's population. Oh, sounds similar to what Bill Gates has said. This is why I hate Pope Francis and Bill Gates. God, I hate these people. The meeting has been titled, quote, Health of People, Health of Planet, and Our Responsibility. Climate Change, Air Pollution, and Health. A look at the attendees set to sit on the panel shows major advocates of a one-world government, single bank and global currency, and proponents of depopulation and single-child family policies, as we see taking place in China. LSN reports the conference title obscures the questionable personal ideologies and professional objectives of a number of its slated participants. And I'll read one of them And then we'll talk about, again, how Congress is an advocate for climate change. This is saying that we need to modify the weather. This is something that they always leave out when we're talking about this. So they're basically trying to modify the weather, they're trying to take down society, and they're trying to control everything. Crazy. Very, 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 very crazy. Professor John Schellenhuber is founding director of the Potsdam Institute for Climate Impact Research, PIC, and chairman of the German Advisory Council on Global Change. He is considered one of the world's leading climate scientists and one of the strongest advocates of the theory that the Earth is undergoing catastrophic global warming. Schellenhuber is also known for his advocacy of a one-world government, basically to control the planet, control the resources, control the environment. In order to avoid his catastrophic predictions for unchecked climate change, Schellenhuber proposes the need for indispensable forms of government, or in his own words, a global democratic society to be organized within the framework of the United Nations. Schellenhuber says in his 2013 article, quote, Expanding the Democracy Universe, that, quote, global democracy might be organized around three core activities, namely the Earth Constitution, a global council, and the planetary court. Schellenhuber has little patience for those who do not accept his scientific theories and conclusions. In May of 2014, with musician Pierre Baigori, Schellenhuber claimed that sometimes politicians have to take citizens to task with coercion to overcome their own resistance to change. And this is what these people are trying to do. They're trying to say that, we're not as caught on to them. I'm caught on to the fact that these people are trying to mind control me. I'm caught on to the fact that these people are trying to use all kinds of different tactics, make us think a certain way, and then to get us in line with them. As we have Governor Jerry Brown of California saying, we need a total, I might say, brainwashing, saying that we need a brainwashing over global warming, that it's demanding a forced global transformation, that we need to wash our minds out and see the very different kind of world. I'll come back to you, Governor Jerry Brown. Let's get into this, how Congress is considering weather manipulation to combat climate change. This is very serious stuff. This is very serious stuff. These are all proponents of this one world government, of this new world order, of this this Agenda 2030, this United Nations plan, this Vision 2030. And the reason why I'm jumping all over the place is because we have to look at what these people are doing. Not only are they trying to radicalize us, but they're trying to offer us a false sense of reality, only to create one that they want. As we've talked about basically at the start of season 5, collapsing the old world order. This is another part of it. They want to control everything. They think they're playing God. You see, I put this up November 9th. It's from End Times headline. It says, Congress considering weather manipulation to combat climate change. It says, ever high temperatures are melting the ice sheets faster than projected. Sea level is rising. International efforts to reduce greenhouse gases are taking longer than expected. It's a nightmare scenario that could soon demand an emergency response. What to do? One idea gaining traction is to seed marine clouds with salt water or other particles, increasing their potential to reflect solar rays, cooling the Earth. It's part of a nascent and controversial branch of science known as sunlight reflection methods, or SRM. We think SRM could buy time for other carbon reduction methods or measures to be put in place, said Philip J. Rash, the chief climate scientist for the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory in Richland, Washington. Quote, if the worst case scenarios of global warming come to pass, these technologies could be used to help save people, saving lives and economies from worst effects of climate change, added Joseph Makjut, director of the climate policy of the Niskanen Center, a Washington, D.C. think tank. Rash and Makjut are two climate specialists who testified Wednesday before House Committee on Science, Space, and Technology, which held a subcommittee hearing on the potential for geoengineering, a catch-all for proposals to directly cool the atmosphere or pull carbon emissions from it. So basically what they're saying, again, is condemning human behavior. We can't continue on like this. We will destroy people. Like we see or will destroy society, like you see right there. Mainstream news quietly admits that food quality is a major cause of cancer. we'll continue to destroy ourselves if we carry on this way. It's unsustainable. It's unable to happen. This is why you see so many people, and I'll pause that right there, because I'm sure you can tell where that's going to go when we start talking about climate change and all these other things. What they're trying to do is they're trying to get people to care more about the environment. They're trying to take us away from spirituality, but at the same time offer us a false sense of spirituality, a false sense of understanding what is happening around us, understanding our place in the world, our place in the earth, and how powerful we are here, and how magnificent the earth is itself. They feel as though they can take control of the planet using things like geoengineering, weather modification, cloud seeding. And this is, again, something we talk about constantly on the show with the concept of post-weather modification. As we've looked at with Texas, Florida, and California, they can go through and destroy things simply to come through with a solution. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're throwing the entire world out of whack simply to come through and say, well, we can correct it with more technology. We just need more money, and you just need to let us manipulate the environment that much harder. Well, think about it this way. Like anything, like any kind of self-correcting system, if we apply the same amount of pressure, it's going to need basically twice as much pressure to conquer it and then to recalibrate. If we try to start messing with the environment, if we start trying to mess with the climate, we're just going to have it lash back at us 3 times harder. You see. And this is, again, where we get things like reducing carbon emissions, these people talking about Agenda 2030, cutting back on cars. That's what we see California, France, and China doing. All of these things are proponents of this new world order, of this Agenda 2030. With Saudi Arabia's NEOM creating new cities that are smart cities that are based on renewable technologies. There's so many different aspects to this. But like I said, getting us into a not a false or a faux sense of a faux relationship with nature, but in a manufactured one, and one where we feel like we're actually part of things, but we're not, where we're kind of connected but we're disconnected at the same time. What I'm trying to say is whenever these people are they're giving us false information, therefore we don't have the full story or the full picture on what's really happening. You see, like here, let me break into it this way. Let me see if I can make sense of what I'm trying to say this way when looking at it from this angle. We can see that they're trying to bring the environment into the discussion these days with things like being eco-friendly, like I said before, climate change, global warming, and all things of this nature, right? Right. So the idea behind this is to basically get us to where we feel at one with the universe, we feel at one with Earth, we feel connected to what is going around us, what is happening all around us. And that's a great thing, but at the same time, we need to see deeply how these people are the very people that are causing the problem that they're trying to provide a solution to. What am I trying to say? I'm trying to say they're trying to offer us drugs. They're trying to offer us all kinds of Band-Aids on scars. Yes, we should be proud or happy the fact that they're legalizing magic mushrooms, the fact that they're giving these things to people who suffer from PTSD, depression, and all kinds of other mental things of this nature. But we've also got to look at who provided these things, who made these things, who grew them, basically, who grew these mushrooms. What kind of world is this that they're trying to put us into? Yes, the environment is very important. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is how these people are conducting experiments. The environment is being weaponized against us. I could talk about that for days. And now there's actual information that's coming out where they talk about how the cursed bread, how the CIA actually, and we've talked about this before, how the CIA poisoned an entire town with LSD and mind control. Imagine that. Everyone you know around you is messed up on LSD or messed up on something. hallucinating. But this is the environment. We feel connected. We wanted to be more spiritual. This is why they're giving us the drugs. These are the social engineers. These are the people in the background. They're saying we need to care more about the environment. We're destroying ourselves. Let's give them drugs so they preoccupy themselves and don't really think about these bigger issues, don't really see how we're basically taking their rights and saying you better abide by this one world government that's saying the earth is more important than you. You are nothing. Let me get into this article. I put it up November 6th. It's from the Daily Sheeple. They reposted it from the Free Thought Project. It says declassified documents show how the CIA poisoned an entire town with LSD in a massive mind control experiment. It goes on to say that for decades after a French village was struck by massive insanity and hallucinations in 1951, it was widely believed that a local bakery's flour had become contaminated by ergot, a poisonous fungus that occurs naturally on rye and causes hallucination. However, a discovery by an investigative journalist doing research for a book about the incident uncovered damning evidence that the village's food was intentionally contaminated with LSD as a part of a secret CIA mind control experiment. On August 16, 1951, numerous locals were suddenly stricken with horrifying hallucinations of fire, dragon, and snakes, with dozens committed to asylums and hundreds left with varying degrees of madness. The incident was known locally as the Mystery of Le Pain Maudit, or the Cursed Bread. Time magazine wrote at the time, quote, "Among the stricken, delirium rose patients thrashly wild on their beds, screaming that red flowers were blossoming from their bodies, that their heads are turning to molten lead." And a local postman at the time, Leon Armenier, was doing his rounds in the town of Point Saint Esprit when he suddenly came overcome by a feeling of nausea and wild hallucinations. It was terrible. I had the sensation of shrinking, and the fire and the serpents coiling around my arms, he told the BBC. Armenier, now 87, fell off his bike and was taken to the hospital in Avignon. He recalls being put in a straitjacket and sharing a room with 3 teenagers who had been chained to their beds to keep them under control. Quote, "Some of my friends tried to get out of the window. They were thrashing wildly, screaming, and the sound of metal beds and jumping up and down and noise was terrible. I'd prefer to die rather than go through that again," Armenier said. So what I'm trying to say by pointing this out, by saying that yes, the CIA will literally poison an entire town to conduct experiments. Well, what happens whenever they actually legalize the drugs? They're trying to disassociate us from reality. They don't want us to think about what's actually happening. They don't want to see how society's collapsing. They want to give us more bread and circus in relation to Rome. They want to give us more bread and circus, more stuff to be distracted on, more games. As we see society crumbling around us, as we see all kinds of things taking place, they don't want us to worry about that. Nope, just do more drugs. And this is something that I pointed out, and I didn't get around to releasing the actual minicast to you guys. But I think it's funny how Donald Trump declared the opioid epidemic an emergency, but at the same time, he gave Amazon the license or the capability to basically deliver drugs to your door.
This epidemic is a national health emergency. Unlike many of us, we've seen and what we've seen in our lifetimes, nobody has seen anything like what's going on now. As Americans, we cannot allow this to continue. It is time to liberate our communities from this scourge of drug addiction. Never been this way. We can be the generation that ends the opioid epidemic. We can do it. That is why, effective today, my administration is officially declaring the opioid crisis a national public health emergency under federal law, and why I am directing all executive agencies to use every appropriate emergency authority to fight the opioid crisis. This epidemic,
and it is an epidemic. It really is an epidemic, and this is good. But like I said, within the same time frame, Amazon gained wholesale pharmacy license. Like, they're actually able to start selling drugs to you guys now. That's how this works. That's why I think this is crazy. So we're dealing with a lot over here in America, and when we look at it, we really do need to see that a lot of things are changing, some for the better and some for the worse. But we are most certainly moving into the future. These are the 4 steps into the However, that's all I really have for you guys. I know I went over a lot. I know I kind of jumped all over the place, but it's to try to paint a bigger picture of what's really happening in our scope of things, in our realm of things. And we don't really need to be fighting amongst ourselves whenever all this chaos is happening. This is a reason why we need to pull together. But like I said, that's all I really have for you guys. Make sure you're checking out the website, factionsoffreedom.jimdo.com, and once you're there, get lost. Go check out some of the articles, the mini-casts, and if you like what we're doing, think about becoming a Patreon subscriber. It really does help us get to where we're going. And also, subscribe to that newsletter. I'll try to get that going because, like I said, they can't stop me from sending it directly to you. If that's what it comes down to, that's what it comes down to. But I digress. I digress. Like I said, guys, stay vigilant. Expose lies and share truth. This is Noisera, Freedom Faction, out.
Waiting teeth, their skin shines crystalline. Run